Welcome to the Abundance Hack Podcast, where we want to inspire you to push past your blocks, limiting beliefs, and comfort zone to live a confident, happy, and fulfilling life. I am your host, Niajae, influencer, motivational speaker, and boss babe. Every time you hit subscribe or leave a 5-star rating, I do my happy dance. Hey guys, it's Niajae. Thank you for watching the Abundance Hack Podcast or listening if you're tuning in on iTunes. I am joined by the amazing Chinmayi, and we are going to discuss what her name means. But before we do, I want to ask you, what does abundance mean to you?
Hello, and thank you for inviting me on the show. So abundance is really interesting coming from my work, because abundance for me was manifested in food. And now obviously, and I think I use that abundance to bring on the feeling of abundance, but actually it was masked in an eating disorder for many years. So but abundance takes on many forms. A lot of people think of it as money, but for me, historically, it meant food. Now it's the freedom around food that I find is abundant in my life. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay, so your company is BodyMAGIC.
Yes.
And today we are going to talk about a little bit more of a sensitive topic than maybe some of the other podcast episodes. So I invite you to definitely open your hearts and open your minds. And I just want to remind everyone, as we talk about these points, to remember to check on your strong friends, or check on your friends and loved ones in general, because you never know who is struggling in silence. So create a safe space for someone to come to you if they feel they have some type of eating disorder. So I just want to know, like, where did BodyMAGIC start, and then where did Chinmayi originate from?
Yeah, well, Chinmayi came about when so it's basically, I'll tell you a little story.
Okay.
So I started, I was in the corporate world. I didn't even know I had an eating disorder. It became such a major part of my life. And I think I went on my first diet when I was 15, which was an apple diet, which seems like ludicrous right now for a growing teenager to like eat apples for a day. And
Wow.
it set off a diet like cycle, which was to be a major part of my life for about 30 years. And I had a really good job, a really good career. I was working in banking. And yeah, I say I had a really good time, a really good career, but at the end of the candle, I was burning. I got into quite a serious alcohol addiction, was messing around with drugs for a time as well. But underneath it was this long-term food problem. And when I got into drugs and alcohol, the food problem sort of tapered off for a while. But when I came out of that scene, obviously the food addiction was still there, and it came back with a vengeance. So I decided to, when my mother passed away in 2006, I decided to totally change my life. I didn't have any choice, really. I had a total physical and mental breakdown. And I went to India after about a year. I took it upon myself to do a bit of an eat, pray, love, although it wasn't released at that time. I went to India and did a yoga teacher training course. So, and my teacher then gave me my spiritual name, which is Chinmayi, which means bestower of bliss.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and gradually, with the practice of yoga and meditation integrating into my life, I just realized one day, do you know what? I haven't binged for so long. I can't remember the last time I ate emotionally or got up in the night and felt like just like devouring a bag of chips, or yeah, just getting up and just eating until I was so full. I couldn't remember the last time that happened. And I realized that all of these things that I'd been doing, meditation, yoga, I'd started to really show my body some love and compassion, and other people as well, because it has a knock-on effect. And I thought, do you know what, this is amazing. I need to share this with people, because I actually felt really sorry for myself looking back on my life and all of those missed just those missed feelings of loving myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to write a book about it. But I wasn't really ready to share all of that personal stuff with the world. So I thought, okay, I'll use my spiritual name. So that's why I'm still using it today for BodyMAGIC.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So if you didn't have that tragic thing happen to you, do you think that you would have been able to get a handle on it? So like your mom passed and you had that like breakdown, but do you think you would have kept on that pattern if something tragic didn't happen?
I think something tragic would have happened to me eventually, because I really was living life like a machine. I was pushing myself Monday to Friday, and then pushing myself in a different way Friday night to Sunday night. I wasn't getting enough sleep. I wasn't doing any exercise apart from dancing and drinking. And I really I wasn't thriving at all. I was just surviving. But I think sooner or later something would have given. I remember when I was still working in the bank, I was on the highway, as you call them, and I had these massive pains in my chest. I was only 32, 33, and I had to pull over, and I really felt like I was going to have a heart attack. I think my body was just in total meltdown. I was burning out, basically. And underneath it all, I wasn't getting the right nutrition. I was eating like sporadically, dieting, causing my body to go into famine, to punish myself for the feast that I had, the day before or whatever. So it was a vicious cycle, which actually took quite a long time to break, to be honest.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wanted to have you on because I think that it's important that people are self-aware before it turns into a serious problem. And I know that I have had my experience with emotional eating. So I was addicted. I don't want to say addicted, but my go-to was wine.
Yeah.
So when I owned my dance and aerial studio, the business took off like really fast. We were the only aerial studio in the city. So if anyone wanted to try aerials, they had to come to me. And so I found myself working. We were open 6 days a week, but even on that 7th day, I still was doing paperwork, making adjustments to the schedule, cleaning, prepping, getting supplies for, the business. And so I was pretty much going nonstop 7 days a week. And I was single pretty much the whole time. So 5 years of this studio. So like, I didn't have a balance of like a love life, work life, social life. And I just became really burnt out, really unhappy. I wasn't taking care of myself. I was drinking a lot of caffeine and pre-workout to get me through the day. And so at the end of the day, I would be so exhausted, but I didn't want to allow myself to feel exhausted. So I'd go home and say, I need a glass of wine, because that's what I felt would calm my nerves of like, oh my God, I'm so exhausted. So I would drink a glass of wine, and then I felt myself drinking wine pretty much every night, and I know they say like, it's okay to drink a glass of red wine a night, but I mean, when you feel like you need it, that's when I feel like it becomes a problem. When you feel like I need a glass of wine, and it was like, that was the only thing that saved me at the end of the day in my head at the time. And so I had a point where I said, okay, like I woke up one morning and I didn't want to get out of the bed. And that's unusual for me because I'm a really happy, like bubbly person. And I didn't want to get out the bed. And I said, I have to make a change. So that is when I decided to sell my business. And I mean, obviously there's a lot of different options in different ways, but I was just ready to go. I was ready to be done with it. And I'm like, I'm going to sell my business. I want to be fully remote. I want to move close to the beach. And I changed my life completely, and now I have like a completely different lifestyle, and I owe that to self-awareness to know this was not going in the right direction. Because I do feel like that's something as entrepreneurs we let slip, is our self-care, and as you said, our self-compassion. So it's really important to notice the signs. And so now I have a little bit of a different situation. And when we met, I explained to you what I do now is I only have wine if I'm like celebrating. I don't want to become dependent upon it. But you said to me when we met that some of your emotional eating was due to celebrating as well. So can you expand on that a little?
Yeah, and I think this is the thing. I think this is where the confusion lies. There are all sorts of emotions, so I think that emotional eating and binge eating are actually slightly different, although they tend to go hand in hand. So the emotional eating is either a way of comforting, or it's a way of getting even higher. So when we've had a low period, and something's going, we're at a wedding or we're at a party, and and someone's passing around the most delicious food, it's like, how high can I go? It's like we can be out with our friends and take it even to another new level. So it's almost trying to make up for the low points. Well, how high can we get? And food was that thing for me for for many decades, actually. 3 whole decades. So so it's not just about hard times. It's actually, it's a dysfunctional relationship with food, period.
Interesting.
And it becomes the enemy rather than the friend and the nourishment that it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
In everything from what we eat to how we eat it. I was a very fast eater, so I actually had a damaged gut, for many years, because I was just stuffing food down, like I wasn't even chewing it properly.
Wow.
So it's there are lots of reasons for that. Some people have a big void, that they feel that they need to comfort it, and they don't taste the food properly or process it properly. But there can be loads of reasons for overeating. Whereas binge eating tends to be because when we're on a diet, the brain believes that we're in the famine response. And it hasn't evolved as well as our food supply has. So the brain still, when we stop eating normally, and we start counting calories and withholding the normal level of food that we've been eating, the brain thinks we're in a famine. It doesn't know. So that when it sees food again, when the eyes see food, the brain thinks, wow, feast. So this is why some people say, I've only got to look at a cake to put weight on. And it's true, the brain can't stop you because it wants you to stock up in case there's another famine again. But that's why we binge, because on some level we're trying to recoup what we haven't been eating to survive.
And I know there's definitely a lot of emotional void. And so one of the things that I preach about constantly is we have to cultivate deeper connections. So I found a lot of people these days are masking their pain and their voids and any type of emptiness that they're feeling with food, drugs, and alcohol. And that's why I felt so important to talk about this. But even if it's not at an extreme level, even if it's just I need a drink, or like, I couldn't wait, like they get to a party and go straight to the bar, even if it's not extreme, it's still a sign of something. So what would you say are like early signs of people having some type of emotional eating or binge eating disorder?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, and this is the thing we don't often notice. I think some of the signs are eating when we're already full. So that's a good sign. Eating more than normal. So rather than a snack being maybe an apple and some nuts, which is a really healthy snack, actually eating an extra meal in between, because a snack is never enough. Eating whilst we're cooking. So something I practice, and I think it's quite good fun actually now, is delayed gratification. So I'm being okay being hungry, because I'm starting to tell my unconscious mind, which wants me to keep me out of a famine situation, that it's okay. Food is coming, you don't need to panic. Rather than my old behavior was to eat while I'm cooking, and then I would still eat the meal. So I would carry on eating, I would never be satiated. And signs where I'm eating when there is some emotional upset. So food would be the go-to thing where it's not necessarily a meal time. I think it's harder. I mean, when you compare it to alcohol, I mean, alcohol is addictive as it is, but there is a lot of stigma around alcohol, and obviously drugs as well, because they're illegal, right? But food isn't illegal, and there isn't such a stigma around it. There is on body shape. There is a certain amount of stigma between cultures and body shapes, but food is like plentiful. Food is legal, and I think this is where we lack support. Is I struggled with this eating disorder and didn't even know it was an eating disorder. I just thought I was greedy. I didn't understand that there was something inside of me that really wanted soothing, and I didn't know how to get it. I didn't have any support or any help. In fact, binge eating has only been recognized as an eating disorder in 2013. It's relatively new, and yet there are 3 times more people suffering with binge eating than anorexia and bulimia put together. So it's an epidemic. It's not. And it's miserable. It's just, people do need help and they do need support. And I think some of these holistic practices like yoga helps to connect with the body again, rather than just like pounding it away in the gym to burn off more calories. Actually taking some time out and relaxing the body and reassociating ourselves with the body is because it's an amazing machine when you think about it.
Yeah, I love yoga. I mean, just some of the health benefits go beyond just like the meditating and the physical aspect, but there's a lot of like breathing that replenishes our organs and helps with digestion and stuff like that. So I'm definitely a huge advocate for yoga.
Yeah.
So when you started doing these self-care activities, did it decrease the desire to want to eat? So like, let me rephrase that, because how some people, I'll give you an example. Have you ever heard of kratom?
No.
I know you where are you located? I know you live in a different country.
In England.
Okay. Okay, so
across the pond.
So kratom is, I honestly couldn't even tell you exactly what it is, but it's a drink that's really popular in the city that I live in. And they're actually trying to ban it for whatever reason. But there's a lot of people who used to be alcoholics that now drink kratom because it's all natural. So it's like they went from like one poison to another.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So what was your like specific steps? Like if you said, okay, I have an eating problem, did you just dive directly into yoga, or was there a step in between where maybe you were trying to replace it with something else?
Yeah, well, that's a really good question on 2 levels, and I'll try to remember to answer both of them. So I found yoga because I had a breakdown, like literally. But to me, it was a breakthrough, right? Breakdown. I found yoga because I couldn't cope mentally, emotionally, spiritually. My life was a mess. My body didn't even feature anymore. I didn't come to, actually, the first time I went to yoga, I thought, this is great. I'm going to get really thin thighs from this. But as my mum passed away, I kind of like collapsed emotionally. And then it started to have all these extra benefits. I started doing other types of yoga that were more traditional, that included an element of more relaxation, more meditation, rather than the physical, what my teacher, my guru calls pumping, jumping yoga. So it was more mindful, more relaxed. And I didn't do it with the intention of overcoming emotional eating. I just thought my binge eating was just a part of my life. It was only a little while later that I realized, oh gosh, I haven't done this for so long. But in the process of actually breaking down and breaking through, I was obviously taking lots of drugs, drinking lots of alcohol. So I was constantly looking for that high, looking for that escape. to soothe the emotions that I didn't know how to face any other way. So
Mm-hmm.
I think the yoga and the meditation actually started soothing them on a much deeper level. So I wasn't reaching for those things so much anymore. And because I became a yoga teacher, I didn't want to, I didn't want to drink the weekend before I was doing a class. I wanted to be like very centered and very conscious.
Mm-hmm.
And I now know that happened naturally, but I now know that alcohol does it totally changes your energy field. And people know that they can sense it, it's, feel a lot more connected without it. I mean, I still enjoy a glass of wine now and again, but like you, it's not a part of the course. It's not something that I have to do just because I'm out with friends or just because I'm having a meal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was actually really powerful. A lot of people are social drinkers, and I made the decision, like, just because I'm going out with friends doesn't mean I have to drink. I can still enjoy myself. And I love drinking wine still. And I definitely go out with my girls and drink wine, but I don't feel like I have to, So there's nights where I'm just like, hey, I'm not drinking tonight, and I think that that's really powerful and really liberating for people to not feel like they have to. Because I think that is another part of our society, just the pressure of doing what everyone else is doing. So
yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. It is peer pressure, and it is it's a socially accepted habit,
Mm-hmm.
And I think, well, just on the social piece, what I noticed as well was when I overcame my emotional eating, and I did this by finding out which emotion I was trying to comfort.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll come on to this. But I found that once I overcame that emotional eating and my relationship with food changed, not only was I going out for meals, but the food wasn't the main part of it. The person that I was meeting and eating with became the main part of it. So I was more in tune with the conversation that was happening. I was more interested in that person's life and what was happening with them, rather than thinking, having major dilemmas about what to have on the menu and fighting over the menu for far too long, and then worrying that I'd missed out because I hadn't had something or they had a better meal than me. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it was, and it's mind-blowing, literally mind-blowing to be in that place where that relationship with food is so dysfunctional. So it changed my social life no end.
Yeah. In order to live an abundant life, you have to adapt an abundant mindset. That requires reprogramming your beliefs to attract all the love, money, and success you can handle. Download this free Abundant as Fuck affirmation ebook with over 100 affirmations to get you started thinking positive, confident, and yummy thoughts. Download it for free at abundancehack.com/ebook to take action towards living your abundant life. Tell us more about the book. BodyMAGIC is the name of it?
Yes. So it's BodyMAGIC, which is a happy ending to binge and emotional eating. So I wrote the book. I actually moved to Spain just so I could get the thing done.
Oh, wow.
I did it in 90 days. I wrote it in 90 days, and it's 230 pages. So that's pretty good going for me.
Yeah.
And it was published in 2015 on Kindle initially. And in 2016, I managed to get it into print. So yeah, it's quite a big book. Yes.
Awesome. So what are some of the key takeaways in the book?
Okay, the first thing in the book really is to find out which emotion needs soothing. And the way of doing that is to try the two principles, the two keys in the book are know thyself and know thy worth. So the more we get to know ourselves, the more connected we feel to ourselves, body, mind and spirit. And then to know thy worth, obviously it's all right having all of this information, but if we don't value ourselves high enough, then nothing changes. So it's really important. Part of the message is to encourage people to really step up and say, actually, do you know what, I deserve to move on from this. So that's the biggest takeaways from the book is to know thyself and know thy worth. But the first part of the book is about finding out exactly which emotion it is. And I didn't even know my own emotion until I went through the process myself. And I found out, I thought that I was quite an angry person, that anger was what I needed to soothe. But when I went through all the process, it turned out to be disappointment, which is actually a form of anger, but a very mild one. And it's really interesting in life when you know what your major emotion is, your go-to emotion is, because it really helps you like forever. It's not just in overcoming eating issues. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow, that's really powerful. I think that a lot of people run from their emotions, or they mask them, they sweep them under the rug and try to tuck them away rather than facing them. And disappointment is something that I've definitely had to deal with, because I know that that is like it's been a huge thing for me in the past, and I've had to really work through that. So yeah, that's really powerful. Okay, so what are some tips? What can someone do if they see someone that they love or care about emotional or binge eating? How is a sensitive way to approach the situation?
That's a really good question, and it's a very hard one to answer, because ultimately I've worked with women who they want to overcome their binge eating because they want to lose weight. And this is very difficult. That is such a challenge, because whilst we're still focusing on the physical aspect of losing weight, it's never going to work, because as soon as life gets in the way, or they have some sort of emotional challenge, they're just going to binge again, which makes the whole problem a lot worse. If you're seeing, it's very hard to actually know when someone is binge eating, because most of it's done in private. But a lot of more people now, on the plus side, I think a lot more people now are more willing to admit that they emotionally eat. Just like a lot more people are. I mean, you see sort of statuses in social media. Oh, I've had a bad day, I'm going to have a glass of wine. Or I've had a bad day, I think I'm going to hit the ice cream. Or, and that's okay, you know, now and again. It's okay. It's when it becomes, like with the wine, it becomes every time something which they believe is unmanageable becomes unmanageable. So I think if you know someone that's emotionally eating, it's very difficult to sort of say anything, because they become even more conscious, and then it becomes more of a thing that they do in private. But it's to make it okay, I think, is to have a conversation, you know, or just kind of associate your behavior with that. So say, oh gosh, yeah, I know what it's like to emotionally eat. Food is a great comforter, isn't it? That kind of thing. You know, but it is very difficult, because, and the reason I think is why is because binge eating, not always, but emotional eating, binge eating tends to go hand in hand with overweightness or obesity. So as soon as you mention someone's eating or their relationship with food, they immediately become quite defensive and subconscious, because they associate it with weight gain. So it is a very difficult subject to approach. But if you've got a really good friend, then I would think that it would be quite, in their best interest as well, just to share, really. How are you feeling is always a good one.
Yeah, I think we do need to ask people how they're feeling a lot more, especially with social media. People associate friendships now with liking posts and, oh, I know you're fine because I checked on your social media, but it's like, do you really know what's going on, you know?
Yeah, they don't call it fake book for nothing, do they?
So I'm curious, this really doesn't have much to do with the topic, but how do you feel about fasting, or like intermittent fasting? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly. Yeah.
That's a good question as well. For me, it would have been the worst thing for me, because then I would have binged again. Now my relationship with food is one that I can tell my unconscious mind that it's okay and that food is coming soon and I'm doing this for health. But if I'd have done intermittent fasting 15 years ago, I would have probably binged a lot more afterwards. and it would have made the problem a lot worse. And it's been bad enough as it was. I do think it's quite dangerous for people who are already on that dieting and binging cycle. I think it's far better to eat a plant-based diet for a couple of weeks and really cleanse the system. But keep eating lots, because if you are a binge eater, then at some part of your brain is not going to be happy unless you're full and it feels like there's no famine in place. It's important to keep eating. It's important to keep eating. Intermittent fasting. I mean, I've done intermittent fasting as well with some of my clients, and really it can be from an early dinner one night until a late breakfast the following morning. And I think that actually works really well. But if we're talking about not eating for a day, I think that's quite dangerous for emotional eaters or binge eaters, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so what are 3 tips you can give the audience for living an abundant life?
Surround yourself with people who make you feel worthwhile, because self-worth is abundance. When you feel like you're being attacked or criticized, understand and know your worth.
Hold on one second.
That their perspective is very unique.
It broke up just a little bit, so I want to make sure that they caught that. So the second one, when you feel like you're
the second one, is when you feel attacked or criticized or put down, understand that it's a projection of how they're feeling themselves and isn't a reflection on your worth. If we agree that your worth is abundance. And know that the third one is know that there are no tricks and no tests from the universe. And that the universe is an endless supply of abundance. And it's only you that puts the hurdles up.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Thank you.
Okay, so where can people find you if they want to reach out to you because this is something that they've struggled with or something that someone they love struggled with? How can they reach out to you?
Okay, that's a really good question. So in the show notes, there will be a link. I'm really keen, if you want to get going, the quickest and easiest way to start on a journey to BodyMAGIC is to find out what is actually eating at you. Because this is when we're eating, there's usually something eating at us. So let's find out what this emotion is. The word emotion is 2 words. It's energy in motion. So let's find out which emotion needs shifting first. So you can be absolutely sure about the care and attention and self-love that you need. So I'm really, really happy to share the first 3 chapters, which is actually 50 pages of my book with your guests. Awesome. And they can go through the exercises in the first 3 chapters and find out what it is that's really eating at them.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm delighted to share it with you. Yeah, that's great.
So that will be in the show notes if you are tuning in on iTunes. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, it will be in the description. So
it's basically bit.ly, so it's bit.ly/BodyMAGIC3, the number 3.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming
you.
on.
Thank you.
This is so powerful, so powerful. I really hope that people listen to this message and just be aware, like self-awareness and aware of what's going on around you, because like I said, there's so many people suffering in silence, and we have to come together, support each other, hold a safe space for people to say, hey, I'm not okay, I'm not feeling good, and be there and support each other. So yeah, thank you so much for this.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, guys, until next time, love and light.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Abundance Hack Podcast. Don't forget to leave comments and questions. Remember, every time you subscribe or leave a 5-star rating, I do my happy dance.